Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. Bernie Sanders has a $16 trillion climate plan. He wants to eliminate fossil fuels in the United States by the year 2050. Let's do the math on his plan. That's $16 trillion divided by 100 million families. That works out to a bargain price of $160,000 per family in the United States. Not to mention the massive increases in energy prices, which would also lead to inflation across every other sector of the economy. This sounds like quite a bargain. Let's see what we'd get if we did this. What if we could go back to the low CO2 levels of the 1880s? This week in 1884, one of the worst tornado outbreaks in U.S. history occurred. Tornadoes were recorded from the upper Midwest down to Texas and into the southeastern United States. There were more than 60 tornadoes and about 1,000 people were killed. But tornadoes were not the only thing going on that week. There was also a massive snowstorm and floods across the country. The floods, Cairo, Illinois. Cairo, February 19th. The river stands 51 feet and 4 inches and is rising. Cincinnati, it's raining hard here and at points above. After falling to 59 feet and 9 inches, the river commenced rising and rose 1/4 inch between 8 and 9 o'clock tonight. Disastrous rain in Southern California. San Francisco, February 19th. Owing to a heavy rain, telegraphic communication has been interrupted with Southern California since Sunday night. Los Angeles dispatches received this evening from Deming and Ogden state that a dam on the Los Angeles River broke Sunday evening, producing the most disastrous flood ever experienced. A terrific tornado, 14 persons reported killed. A fearful storm struck Amberson and Ladega, Alabama this afternoon. Some 14 persons were reported killed. Houses were blown down in large numbers. Other storms, stagecoach passengers lost in Dakota. 3 out of 4 stages due in the Dakotas yesterday have not been heard from, and it's believed that the drivers and passengers perished in the blizzard. A disastrous gale in the Ohio Valley. The worst gale ever known is sweeping this part of the Ohio Valley from end to end, carrying destruction and death with every blast. And remember that the Ohio Valley was also experiencing massive flooding at the same time. Wednesday, February 20th, 1884, Galveston, Texas and vicinity experienced a disastrous tornado on the 12th of February. The river at Cincinnati was still rising on the 12th and danger greatly increased by the undermining of buildings. The situation at Pittsburgh, Wheeling, and all towns in the flooded district was still unimproved on the 12th. February 20th, 1884, a frightful calamity, terrible destruction of life and property by the tornado in Georgia. At Jasper, a number of children are mangled in an overturned building. Thousands of homes wrecked. 2 cyclones at one point, a second deluge. Atlanta, Georgia, February 19th. The storm of this afternoon throughout northern Georgia was productive of great loss of life and property. For several days, the rains have been uninterrupted, causing a rapid rise in the rivers. This week in 1884, there was disastrous weather occurring from coast to coast. February 1884 had some horrifically awful weather. If we had an outbreak of weather like that now, climate alarmists would state 99% certainty that it could not have happened at lower CO2 levels. Let's look now at some other things which went on in the 1880s. In January 1888, a catastrophic blizzard occurred in the Dakotas. The storm came without warning on a very warm day and killed hundreds of school children. About 3:30 we heard a hideous roar. At first we thought it was the Omaha train which had been blocked and was trying to open the track. The storm came as if it had slid out of a sack. A hurricane-like wind blew, the snow drifted high in the air, and it became terribly cold. Within a few minutes it was dark as a cellar, and one could not see a hand in front of their face, a farmer from Valley Springs, South Dakota, described. And a few weeks later came the worst blizzard in New York City's history. New York Times, March 13, 1888, in a blizzard's grasp, the worst storm the city has ever known, business and travel completely suspended. New York, helpless in a tornado of wind and snow which paralyzed all industry, isolated the city from the rest of the country, caused many accidents and great discomfort, and exposed it to many dangers. The New York City subway system was built as a result of this blizzard. So Bernie wants to take us back to the weather of the 1880s, only this time he's not going to let us have fossil fuels. I wonder how well solar panels work buried under 6 feet of snow. But that's not all that was going on in the 1880s. This graph shows the number of U.S. hurricane landfalls by decade going back to the year 1850. The 1880s was the worst decade for hurricanes in the United States. There were 26 hurricane landfalls that decade. U.S. hurricane landfalls have been declining for a century, with the past decade having the fewest number of hurricanes on record. 1886 was the worst hurricane year on record in the United States, with 7 hurricanes making landfall. The city of Indianola, Texas was wiped off the map permanently by one of these hurricanes. Austin Statesman, August 26, 1886. Indianola, latest from the ruined town, the burial of the lost. This is the hurricane track map for 1886. Texas was hit by 4 hurricanes and Florida was hit by 3. 2 places in Texas were hit by more than one hurricane, as was one place in Florida. But Bernie has a plan. He's going to bring democratic socialism to the United States. Angela Merkel grew up in the democratic socialist state of East Germany. And here's a picture of Bobby Kennedy staring into that democratic socialist paradise. Bernie's going to spend $16 trillion to cut off our energy supply, and he's also going to make university education and healthcare free. Bernie wants to spend trillions of dollars, just like they did in Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, China is building hundreds of new coal-fired power plants. U.S. CO2 emissions have been declining for more than a decade, while China's emissions are skyrocketing. The reality is that there's nothing that Bernie Sanders could do which would have any significant impact on the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and certainly not anything he could do to affect the climate. But as president, he might have the ability to destroy our economy and shut down our energy supply. Bernie Sanders is delusional and out of touch with reality, and he's the leading Democratic candidate. We have only 9 months until the election, and we need to make sure that these lunatics are kept out of power. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.